A lot has happened on this Friday, the 13th, but the two big policy announcements from the Trump White House in the last 24 hours on health care and the Iran deal appear to have something in common. Here's the New York Times in June on what guides Donald Trump's decision-making. Quote, whether out of personal animus, political calculation, philosophical disagreement, or a conviction that the last president damaged the country, Mr. Trump has made clear that if it has Mr. Obama's name on it, he would just as soon erase it from the national hard drive. Today, the president attempted to unravel two of President Obama's signature initiatives, ending key Obamacare subsidies that help lower the cost of premiums for low-income Americans, as we first reported on this show last night, and this afternoon, decertifying the Iran nuclear deal, putting most of the responsibility for the future of the deal on Congress. The president is currently tweeting about the deal as we speak, which we'll get to in a moment. But in his speech this afternoon, the president claimed that the deal was just a short-term delay in Iran's quest for nuclear weapons, despite the fact that the International Atomic Energy Agency confirms that Iran is honoring its nuclear commitments. Trump claimed Iran is violating the spirit of the agreement.
While the United States adheres to our commitment under the deal, the Iranian regime continues to fuel conflict, terror, and turmoil throughout the Middle East and beyond. Importantly, Iran is not living up to the spirit of the deal.
France, Germany, and the United Kingdom issued a joint statement criticizing the president's remarks. Russia also called it, quote, troubling, but Israel praised President Trump's words as courageous. Now, we should note, despite the president's rhetoric, the deal is not dead yet. It falls to Congress now to decide whether to attach new conditions to the agreement or to reimpose sanctions and end the deal. Here's President Trump after his announcement this afternoon.
We're going to see what happens. We're going to see what they come back with. They may come back with something that's very satisfactory to me. And if they don't, within a very short period of time, I'll terminate the deal.
Now, the punting of this football to Congress was reportedly a compromise between the president and senior administration officials. The Washington Post reported this week that President Trump was, quote, incensed by arguments from his Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense that the agreement, while flawed, offered benefits. He didn't want to certify to Congress that Iran was complying with the deal, even though the evidence is that Iran is complying with the deal. Quote, he threw a fit, said one person familiar with the meeting. He was furious, really furious. It's clear he felt jammed. So White House National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster and other officials came up with this to, as the Post put it, accommodate Trump's loathing with the Iran deal without actually killing it outright. So inasmuch as there is a Trump doctrine, some of it is reportedly accommodating the president's loathing. Joining us now are Steve Clemons, editor-at-large at The Atlantic and MSNBC contributor, and Ilan Goldenberg, senior fellow and director of the Middle East Security Program at the Center for a New American Security. Gentlemen, good to see both of you. Steve, I remember talking to you shortly after the Iran deal. I was in Tehran while it was being negotiated, and no one in Tehran, in America, or anywhere else where this deal was being talked about was under any impression that Iran was suddenly going to become a friend of the West, a friend of America, was going to get out of the business it was in Yemen or with Hezbollah or with Assad. So the concept, the idea that Iran is violating the spirit of the deal is uninformed at best.
That's absolutely right. I mean, this arrangement between the United States and Russia, China, Europe, Germany, with Iran was based on high levels of mistrust. This was not a warm and fuzzy relationship. This was not a naive arrangement. This was something that was based on mistrust and with deep, deep verification. In fact, the head of the IAEA said there's no nation in the world that has deeper and more profound verification standards in place now than we have with Iran. And so it was under those conditions that this was was done. And I think many of us that had been watching this come apart, I learned today from Ben Rhodes, from Wendy Sherman, others that did a call, is that the Obama administration had evidence that Iran was just 2 months away from having enough fissile material for a warhead and actually crossing that line. And so this was an imminent issue where there was a vector that we either get a deal or you were faced with the possibility of some form of potential kinetic military action by the United States and perhaps Israel against Iran. Those were the stakes in place, and Donald Trump acts as if he's completely unaware of any of these issues, and that's where we are today.
Ilan, I remember this deal not being particularly popular amongst Americans. It just wasn't a particularly popular deal. People in America don't trust Iran, and probably the only competitive arena of mistrust is in Iran, because the people in Iran don't trust America. There are hardliners in Iran who have been waiting for this moment to say, this is our opportunity to walk away from this deal. What is the danger? What is the danger that this tough talk about the Iran deal actually results in some parties walking away from it and the deal collapsing?
Sure. Well, the good news is that in the short term, that doesn't look like what's going to actually happen. But the bad news is that I think we've actually got the worst of all worlds. We basically have the president generate this artificial crisis because he doesn't want to sign a document that acknowledges that something Barack Obama did was actually half good and working. And so instead, we create this crisis, we shake the confidence of our European partners, but then we come up with a solution that punts it to Congress in this sort of this confused mess that isn't actually that intimidating or that effective. So what you end up with is the worst of all worlds. The Iranians are probably looking at this and saying, on the one hand, we don't trust this guy, and this could be the end of the nuclear agreement. But on the other hand, for all this bluster, this is it. It's actually not very intimidating. And then you add to the fact that you have others, the Russians, the Chinese looking at this, probably scratching their heads, and the Israelis and the Saudis, even though the Israelis came out and said that they supported it publicly, probably overall underwhelmed. I mean, what this is the president doesn't need Congress to do any of what he actually laid out today. He could do all of this by himself if he wanted to, simply by laying out some red lines, and instead he punts it over to Congress because he can't make a decision himself.
Well, Steve, if you were worried about the fact that you were working late on a Friday night, you're not alone. Other than the two of us, Ilan and I, the president is working tonight. He has tweeted just a little while ago, many people talking with much agreement on my Iran speech today. Participants in the deal are making lots of money on trade with Iran. The president is right on that part. In fact, the only reason it seems that Iran came to the table finally after 2 years of negotiation and agreed to that deal was that its economy was collapsing. The United States had imposed restrictions on trade, on the transfer of money,
Absolutely.
on the use of credit cards. The Iranian economy was collapsing. The rugs they used to sell. This was an industrialized.
Absolutely.
This was an industrialized country. They needed into the global economy again.
We brought the entire world together. To close off Iran, to create what were called then crippling sanctions, and we worked together with the Chinese, we worked together with the Russians, the Indians, the Brazilians, the Europeans, and we created conditions that basically changed Iran's calculus about what it was willing to do. And that is part of this arrangement. We're talking about the nuclear side. I agree with everything that Ilan just said. But another part of this was that Iran was going to forestall the various pathways that it might have to a nuclear capacity, nuclear bomb. They never basically said they were trying to build a nuclear weapon, but they closed those down. But in return for economic activity, for the removal of sanctions, for the normalization of economic relationships. And so I got to tell you that the Iranians privately have already been saying that the United States has already technically violated their part of the deal when Donald Trump was in Hamburg at the G20 meeting and actively lobbying against other national leaders from investing in Iran. That's what they're in it for.
Yep.
And we've been violating that part of that.
All right, we're going to have to see where this goes. Steve Clemons and Ilan Goldenberg, thank you both for joining me tonight.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.